So, Tim, I understand we were in Corvallis on the same day, and while myself and my daughter were seeking out potential higher education opportunities and avenues for her, you and your wife were dodging home run balls at Goss Stadium.
We were dodging lightning strikes and home run balls, apparently. Yeah, we got there in the evening. You were there during the day when it was nice and mostly sunny. We got there for the baseball game that started at 5:30. It actually moved up and started at 5. And we had an hour and 40-minute weather delay because of lightning in the area. And then after the games got started, Bryce Hubbard hit a home run, and we were out in right center field, and ball's coming. And I'm like, oh, and then it's like, no, that's going to be like right up here. And like I dodged, and my wife went the other way and missed me and got her, and she's fine.
So vindication for all those adults who bring their baseball gloves to the
we're going back in 3 weeks. I said, I'm going to bring my glove next time, just purely for defensive reasons.
Well, the spring break, obviously it's a great time if you're an athlete to, kind of take a breather, for us to go and kind of, it marks a big sort of transition time in the spring season. But we're here to talk about the end of the spring season and the special event that has kind of become the capstone of every year that we do here at the Columbian in our high school sports coverage, and that's the all-region awards ceremony. It's going to be bigger and hopefully better than the last
it's been a process for the 3 years of doing this. We do things 1 year and then we learn from it, and then the next year and we learn from it. But really excited for the potential for what we can do this year. And do you want to talk about the date and time and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Number one, the date. It's June 17th, 6:30 p.m. at Skyview High School auditorium. And you might notice two things about that. Number one, June 17th is later than we have been. And the reason being that in the previous 2 years, we've had it sort of right in the middle of all the senior week pre-graduation festivities. And while we sort of figured that would make sure that all the athletes we wanted to salute hadn't yet scattered out for all their summer trips and plans and everything, we did notice it was running into conflicts with some of the events, especially the senior night events, senior celebrations. And so it made some of the athletes that we wanted to give the spotlight to have to make some pretty tough choices about, do I go to the event at my school or do I go to the event that the Columbian's putting on? So we wanted to not have that be the case anymore. So a little bit later in the graduation calendar, and in fact it's coming after graduation and for the seniors in every case. And number two, just we needed a bigger room. We were sort of surprised the first year where we had it in the Kiggins Theater. I think it seats a little over 300. And when everybody showed up and we had to actually do standing room only, like, okay, that was a nice surprise. We'll go a little bit bigger for year two. Well, we go to the Hilton, about 550 people. We ended up having to expand the capacity to over 600 and still had to turn people away. So we didn't want to be in the business of having to either turn people away or tell people, hey, you asked for 3 tickets, could you maybe only take 2? So the Skyview High School auditorium is one of the biggest venues in the area. It seats over 1,000, and I think this will put us in a nice spot where we have a full room, great energy, but we don't have to turn anybody away.
I think I saw someplace that it's like 1150 or something was the capacity in the auditorium. That was the hardest thing the last couple of years, is that especially the honorees who come in the spring, right? Because we make those selections, those announcements late May, and then we got to let them know that, hey, you can come. And so then the families find out about it, and it's a very tight window, and a lot of families were like, oh, I'm just hearing about this. And then they went to go try to get tickets for the event, and we had already closed the ticket sales because we had started to let in selected people. We wanted to make sure that the honorees got in, and maybe they had one family member, but maybe that family wanted to bring 4, 5, 6 people, family members with them, and we had to say, no, we gotta have to limit it because once we opened the ticket sales last year, we had this swell of people who wanted to come to our event at the Hilton that we had to kind of close it off. So we don't want to turn people away. We wanted to get a room even going to a room that was 750, we still might have been in the same situation. So we wanted Skyview afforded us the that flexibility where we can say, if anybody wants to come. So ticket sales are available now. If you go to Columbian.com to our events page, and we'll put the link down in the
you'll have the link here.
The comment section. You can get your tickets now. So every athlete who has been selected to an all-region team already this year in the fall or the winter are they can come for free. So they're the ones being honored. So we want them to come. We do want you to go to the site though and register yourself so that we know you're coming, and we can make sure we set out seats for honorees, or however we're going to do that. Make sure that we have the gifts that we have for all of our honorees coming. Like we have enough of those as well. So make sure that you register and say, "Yep, I'm planning on coming." And then for friends, family, coaches, teammates, it's $15. We're trying to hold the line on the cost over the last couple of years. And all the money that we collect from this event will go back into the event.
Yeah, it's a complete nonprofit event.
We're going to turn it over, and the next year will allow us to do more things, and so we're excited about that. The other advantage of going later, apart from the fact that we're not conflicting anymore with all the end of year events, and I think when we started this process out like 3 years ago or more, you kind of reached out to other organizations that had held similar events. Yeah. And the word that we got back was, "Oh, you got to make sure you do it before the end of the school year, because then people just, they head off for the summer vacations." And so we said, okay, well, I guess we'll do it that week prior to the first graduations. But it ended up being, 6 of this, half a dozen of the other kind of thing, where people were having conflicts, either, senior nights, baccalaureates, team banquets, and all sorts of things. And so we wanted to clear that off the board. The Skyview auditorium that we got wasn't really even available until after school got out. So that's put us into this window as close to the end of the school year. All the graduations will have been done. Yeah. But some of the schools will still be in school. Some of them won't be done, but others will still be going on. So hopefully people haven't embarked onto their summer plans, and we let them know early enough so you can make those summer plans and still make a chance to come.
Well, and you touched on it also in your column that appeared in this Wednesday's Columbian, and it's that the earlier event made us have to accelerate some of the athlete and team selections for spring sports. And I think if we, now with this later date, we'll be able to take into account the entirety of the spring season, whereas last year we had to make some of those decisions before the last week of the state tournaments.
Yeah. Last year, for the first time, like we've been selecting all region teams in every sport going back 25 years. And in all that time, we always waited till the end of the state tournaments had all been held before we made our selections. And that was true for the sports that play in the fall but finish in the spring, like boys golf and boys tennis. So they would play most of the regular season in the fall, their district tournaments in the fall, and then they would come back and have state in the spring. But we would wait to make those selections until after the state tournament was made. Last year, for boys golf and boys tennis, because we knew the window was going to be so tight and we would be making our selections prior to state, that we just made those publications of those teams back in the fall. And sometimes, you can try to judge, how good some of our local players are during the regular season, but it really isn't until they get to state that we really sort of find out really how good they are when they're matching up against the best in the state. A lot of those sports, they only play within their own geographic area here during the regular season, and even going to district doesn't really give you that full scope. And also for the other sports that are in the spring, like track and field is a good example. These kids, they're building towards the state meet. They're training to do their best marks, their fastest mark at the state meet. So that's really where you kind of figure out really where their ceiling is. Sometimes what they do at state will carry a lot more weight. And so but again, the last couple of years we had to make decisions before because of that window. We had to pick the teams early enough to give those honorees a chance to know that they were going to be eligible to come, and we had to let them know. And so it really boxed us in. And I think it's fair to say that there were decisions that we might have made different had we had the afforded window that we had had previously. So moving this back gives us that window, and hopefully it will give everyone enough time to learn that they have been selected. It is nice that still that softball and tennis and golf will finish a week earlier than the other sports, so there'll be even a larger window there. And hopefully people will still be able to come and fill the room and have a great night.
I think one of my favorite adjustments we made from year one to year two in this event was making sure that everybody, whether they were the athlete of the year in a certain sport or just a member of the all-region team, left the event with something. Yeah. And so what we did the first year when we were just kind of fumbling our way through the darkness, not sure what we were going to do, is we had the one athlete of the year in each sport come up and on stage and be recognized with a framed portrait. Last year, we expanded it to where everybody who was on the all-region team in that sport, they got to come up on stage as a group and get a certificate. So the athlete of the year in that sport, still framed photo, a nice keepsake with that. But everyone else who's there kind of gets a certificate and gets to gather up on stage. I think we had some great gatherings with rivals and competitors from different schools that you could really see the camaraderie that stretches beyond, you have Evergreen kids, chuckling it up with a Battleground and Camas and Union kids, and it kind of really sort of emphasize the camaraderie that a lot of these kids have in competition and also just representing Southwest Washington. So we're definitely going to do that again this year. So yeah, if you make an all-region team, even if you aren't like the player of the year in that sport, you will be recognized and you will leave the event with a keepsake.
Yeah, so that was great. It was a great sort of display of community, right? This is a community event. We're celebrating everyone in the community. It was great to see people coming in from, out in Cowlitz County, or we had one of our honorees from White Salmon, from Columbia White Salmon, come and make the trip out. It was great to see the whole area. It wasn't just Clark County. It was, Skamania and Klickitat, and then Cowlitz up at Kelso, Longview, and Castle Rock, Kalama, Woodland, all those up there. So I really kind of great to see everyone kind of embrace this event and participate in it. I know the one thing about Skyview, and when we thought about this going back years, because we had considered Skyview as a venue in the past, and the reason why we couldn't get it is because we were trying to hold it the week of all of these year-end events in school.
Completely booked.
Yeah, look, they're doing things every night, so we couldn't get it previously, and so, but we had talked about holding it at a school facility and what that dynamic would create. Like, people from Camas or Columbia River or some rival school, they don't want to go to Skyview for this thing. And so I hope everyone will understand the reason why. It's one of the biggest venues of its kind in the area, and it allows us to open up for everyone. So, if you're going there from Camas, make it your own.
Yeah, you could take over a whole quadrant of the seating. And if like you said, if you're from Columbia River and maybe you want to wear your Storm Drain t-shirt, don't look at it as the Skyview Auditorium. Look at it as the host venue of the Vancouver Symphony Orchestra, because it is that too. Right. So I think another real highlight, besides just the kids coming up and representing their schools and kind of sharing that camaraderie, one of the highlights for me, the previous 2 years, has been the keynote speakers we've been able to have. I think the last 2 years really hit it out of the park. Number one, starting with Kara Winger, the Olympian from Skyview High School, who is the greatest American women's javelin thrower to ever be, came back and just had a great message. And followed that up last year with Kamara Banfield, who was a track and field star at Mountain View, who went on to compete and win a gold medal in the World Championships, and went on to become a Superior Court judge here in Clark County. This year, I'm super excited about our keynote speaker. It's going to be Derek Nesland. He state champion basketball player at Evergreen High School, went on to play at Portland State, where he is in the Athletics Hall of Fame over there, went on to have a long basketball career overseas. And then his story, I think, feeds perfectly into kind of what we're looking for in a keynote speaker. We prefer them to, have been a successful high school athlete from Southwest Washington who has used sports to go and either find success or open the world through sports to them and share that story with young athletes who might see sports as a vehicle to have success in their own lives, or at least open the world. Well, Derek, after his playing career was over, he shared this story about how he's like, oh, I kind of don't know what's next for me. And he had played in the Philippines professionally, and someone who he was associated with back there is like, hey, my area in the Philippines, we could really use a court. We could use this for basketball, but also just as a community gathering space. And so that project ended up becoming what became Courts for Kids, which is a nonprofit that is based here in Vancouver that has now built hundreds of courts around the world in communities, usually taking, they take groups from Southwest Washington, high school kids. I've been on two of the trips with my daughters, when they were at Columbia River High School, one to the Dominican Republic and one to Panama. It's just an amazing experience, an amazing example of how sports really connects the world on a human level. And so Derek, I think his keynote speech is just going to be fascinating. For those of you who can learn more about his organization and his story, I think it just is a perfect representation of kind of what we're looking for in a keynote speaker.
Yeah, we kick around a lot of names and for keynote speakers, but the part that I like of all three, the two that were done in the past, and then our speaker this year, is they were high school standouts here. Mm-hmm. Kara Winger was an all-region selection in track and field, and then Kamara Banfield was a standout at Mountain View in the early '90s, and Derek was a Super 5 player of the Columbian, and an earlier predecessor of our all-region team. So they were standouts here locally as high school athletes. So they're just like the kids who will be honoring on that night, except they did it in the past. And then they took that experience and they went and excelled in their adult lives. And so it kind of shows, an example of what the high school experience and the high school athletic experience serves as a basis for your life moving forward. And I think it's a good inspiration. I'm really looking forward to hearing from Derek and sharing his story.
Well, and I think it's one of the examples of why I think we prioritize coverage of high school sports and why it's so enjoyable, certainly for me. And I think for you also, is that, yeah, we're covering the games, but in a way we're covering the people and how the games allowed them to grow as human beings and eventually represent their communities on a much larger stage. I love following athletes that are from here as they go and play in college, whether that's in football, baseball, or any other sport. And then we'll hear about, 10 years down the road, an athlete who's founded a company or gone on to become something where you just want to ask them, how many of those lessons that you learned came from your experience in high school sports?
Yeah, it's always interesting when you come across people in the community and you see a name, and we've been covering high schools for, 20, 25 years here locally, and you'll see a name and you'll go, that name sounds familiar to me. And then you later, go back and do some work. Oh yeah, that person played soccer at Ridgefield or baseball at Columbia River or wherever. And it's always great to see And then the new thing that we're starting to see now is like you see high school athletes who are standouts here, and they go, "Oh yeah, his dad was so and so. Their mom was so and so who played, 20, 30 years ago as a high school standout." So it's great to see that sort of. Again, it's a night of community, but of community building.
Yes. Yeah, because I mean, everyone that is in that room has their own story and they're going to take that story out into the world. And so that gathering and just seeing how everybody in that room, like they respect each other's struggles and the time they put in and the work they put in. But also, you see like, yeah, they gather together among their schools. Like you'll have like, oh, that they're all from, that school over there. But then you'll also see kids from different schools but of the same sport gather together, and that's kind of that bond that I think they share, that's worth celebrating in that room.
Yeah, it was. The two venues the last 2 years were different. The first year we had a theater setting, so I remember deucing at the Kiggins where I saw like in the third row was like, oh, those are all boys soccer players. There was just a whole row of boys soccer players. So the whole team just was right there, the all region team. And then last year we had a table set up, so everyone was at tables, and so. You had a lot of tables from individual schools or families, and other times it would be tables of athletes all together. When we would last year when we were able to call them up to the stage, you would see that they would sometimes move from this one area and come on up. So it's just it's a great fun night. We'll wait and see what the change in date will do as far as people availability. The last two events, or at least one of the two events, happened. There were actually some high school graduations that happened prior. We tried to do it before, but there are some schools that did graduate earlier. So we still saw people from those schools come and attend. So that's our hope, is that people will still be able to come. It's a Wednesday night, 6:30, and we think it'll be another cool event, and take from here, from what we learned this year on to next year and more.
All right. If you have any questions, feel free to email both of us. We'll put our email addresses there, but it's real simple: micah.rice@columbia.com or tim.martinez@columbia.com or 360 or sports@columbia.com. That works too. Yeah. So we're really looking forward to it. We're looking forward to this sprint of the spring season through late April and May. But it's all going to culminate June 17th at Skyview High School with the All-Region Awards ceremony. We hope to see you there. And until then, we hope to see you out at one of the baseball or softball fields or even a track meet once it's raining today, but we know there's better weather in store.